This is a song for my friends Jaret and Gary. They started a podcast and said a theme was necessary. They're just a couple of guys in a band that you know. Some rockstar dads who started a show. So here's the next episode.
Welcome to the Rockstar Dad Show. And when I say we're back, I mean we're back from Canada.
Yeah,
You know?
we got our passport stamped and everything.
Man, you know, it's funny how I feel like every time I think we're going to be in the zone to get caught up on episodes and make sure that we're coming out every week and all of that, it's really life that happens more than like, because I feel like we plan really well on the touring thing. Like, I feel like we're like, okay, we've got 3 weeks. We need to get 6 episodes done or whatever. And then it's a sick kid or it's, you know, or it's sick Jaret. Or right now, I'm going to be honest, you sound a little crummy. Are you not feeling good?
I think it's just the post tour, getting home completely exhausted, body worn out.
Yeah.
I think there may be a little bit of like a cold or something, but I'm not admitting defeat to that. So I'm going to stick with it's just worn out.
I'm doing the exact same thing. Night one, Casey goes, you getting sick? And I'm like, no. So basically for the listener, we just did a short tour in Canada, but short meaning full day of travel, 5 shows in a row, full day of travel home. No rest. And, you know, at when we were young and spry, that we would have jumped right back into something else. But quite frankly, life, you know, and age and things. But, you know, then we come back to like just shitty weather here, which stirs up we have the craziest, I guess the second worst allergies in the nation.
Yeah.
Are right here in the Dallas area.
They're definitely bad. Yeah.
And Casey just goes, are you getting sick? You're doing the thing. And I go, no, I'm not getting sick. And I'm doing the same, like, will it away deal. And then, and I'm just like, no, it's just, you know, my body's worn out.
Yeah. Anika and I had that same conversation. I'm like, I'm just exhausted. I'm sore. I'm tired. And you know, I'm saying allergies, maybe it's cold. I don't know. Again, not admitting defeat, but that day we get home, I'm exhausted and I'm like, I'm going to sleep good tonight. I take a 10 milligram melatonin. Like that's going to knock me out. Right. And as soon as I get down in bed, my nose just goes and like stops up. Well, I've got the CPAP that's like just a nasal thing. So like I can't breathe. I'm kind of tossing and turning and not sleeping till like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, but I'm dead tired. Plus I've taken this melatonin. So I'm just like groggy as shit. Didn't get much sleep that first night. So that adds to, hey, we've been home for a day now, but I'm still trying to catch up.
Man, I slept great the first night. Last night I could not sleep. And I think I honestly believe I was overly tired. Like I went straight so we got home Tuesday. And then yesterday I had this recording session that I had scheduled with a buddy who is a radio guy over at the ranch here in Dallas, in Fort Worth. He teaches a class on recording, and so it was the only day he could do it. And so I scheduled it for the day after we get home. And so like I'm scrounging for, you know, dudes to go in there with me and scrounging for just whatever I'm even going to record. And as I was sitting there, I was telling everybody, you know, about where I was, you know, like, hey, yeah, I just got home from Canada, whatever. They're like, you're not even going to remember today. Well, then I went to dinner with my little brother and his wife, and I got home and I was literally delirious. I think I was so tired last night that I was too tired to sleep.
Yeah.
And
that's the most frustrating thing is whenever you're so tired, you're too tired to sleep, and the act of falling asleep wakes you up.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, I almost did it. How do I get back to that spot? You know? Oh man. Yeah, it's but man, what a great tour. You know, we haven't been to Canada. And for those listeners who don't know, Gary and I are in the band Bowling for Soup, and we haven't been to Canada in 15 years. It's not the easiest place to get into if you're going and you're going and you have goods to sell, there's just a bunch of taxes and stuff. There's also little individual hills to climb, just depending on your life experience and stuff.
Well, and it's also a very mountainous region.
And a very mountainous region.
Yeah.
Yeah, not in the coastal areas, right? Just I don't know. Anyway, well, you got to get across that goddamn waterfall. But anyway, we went back after 15 years and had just an amazing, successful time. And I just can't thank the other bands, Anti-Queens and Rival Town, enough for their hard work and making the tour happen, and just our crew and their crews, and especially the people that came out. Man, it was wonderful shows. It was good to be back in Canada. I was reminded quickly how much I think of that country. It's a good spot, and quite frankly, they've got Miller Lite now readily available.
So like actually touring there is great. It's comfortable. It's almost, it's almost like homish. It's not quite the feeling of being in a completely different country like some of the places. It's just in the past it has been hard to get to. But now that it's not hard to get to, like, hey, great. It's a fun place to go.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just it. We learned how to do it correctly. Hold on, I'm just adjusting this camera.
A minute ago you said that you had gone to dinner with your brother.
Yeah.
And I've known you for like 35 years. That is getting to be a more and more confusing statement.
It really is. Yeah. It's so I went to dinner with my little brother, who is the one that we discovered while on the golf course a year ago.
Okay.
And you and I, and he is super, super busy, and he's younger. He's 33 now, and he's just kicking ass, and he's good. He's one of the good ones, that kid. And I was glad. I was at a studio over near him. I'm trying to do that thing in adulthood where I take the opportunities as they come.
Like if you're in someone's area going, hey, I'm going to be in your area.
Yeah. I mean, because that way you don't just have the deal where you just feel terrible about not seeing anybody all the time, and, I went to breakfast with Chris Caraba from Dashboard Confessional the other day, and he literally had just flown in just to hang out with a friend of his he hadn't seen in a while, because he was doing this thing where he's just like, you got to go see your friends. And I'm just like, man, like, I used to be better about that. And so it's just something, I'm still workshopping it.
I like it. I think like my two thoughts on that is my wife gets extremely offended whenever she finds out that like people were close to us but didn't reach out to her.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't ever take it personally, because I always think like people are just busy. They're going here, 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 here. It's not that like they don't want to see you. It's just that everyone's on their own time frame and schedule and busy. And I don't ever take that shit personally, but she does. But then the other thing about like, you just have to go see your friends. I think about this anytime I'm watching TV or movies. Like it's just one thing that progresses the story along, but it's always in my mind. It's like, that's not real. Cause it's like whenever something happens in a story where they have to talk to someone, like they stop by their house or,
right.
It's like, no, you just call them.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the things that's has to be making, and I guess it's just one of those things like we talk about how I guess the writing sort of just changes with life. But there's a line where in film where none of it makes any sense with cell phones, and it's like, okay, now we have an entire generation who's never not had a cell phone. So you're really going to have to quit doing that. Like we've been watching so much Seinfeld on the bus, and it's like that their whole existence wouldn't even happen. They wouldn't ever even all be in that apartment together, because half the time, they're coming by to get him to go to the movie or get him to go to lunch or get him to tell him about their day or whatever. And That's, it's cell phones really have shaken things up a smidge.
Yeah, but I still thought that, like, even whenever I was in high school watching movies, like, unless it was a mobster, like, we're not going to talk on the phones about this. Like,
Right.
I always just thought, someone going over to be like, hey, this package came in and now we got to do this. It's like, I wouldn't stop by their house for that.
No. Yeah, you're right. I mean, man, I guess I think back to my high school days of like not being able to get a hold of people, and we would just, drive by and see if their car was there, and if their car was there, go up to the door. But again, that's an eternity ago.
Yeah, that is that. I guess it's a different thing too, because it was a different life too. Whenever you're in high school, it's like, well, I'm going to be hanging out at this place, and they're going to be there, so I'll just see them, and I'll tell them that then.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not making an extra trip for this item. That's
sure.
just what always, what I was always confused about.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I do remember like going by people's houses and them not being home. Like that's such a weird thing to even think about because you would never go to somebody's house now unless you knew that they were home. you know, like, and if somebody does just show up at your house, it's fucking weird. You're like, what's wrong? What's happening right now?
Yeah, I think this happened. I think you've said this happens with Everett. I used to do this as a kid, and kids used to do this for me. But the stopping by and like, hey, can Everett come out and play?
Yeah.
Like, that's not a thing for Tyler. It never has been. It's
Hmm.
been like either the parents texting, hey, they're going to be here. Do they want to come over? Or
Yeah.
him on Xbox saying, hey, I'm going to go do this. Do you want to come? Like, he's never gone and knocked on someone's door, or someone knocked on our door for him. That being said, we do have some neighbor girls that Mia likes to play with, and they'll come knock on the door and say, will Mia come out?
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, I think it just depends on where you live and the proximity to friends because we were definitely Emma never had. Well, I guess Emma did too. I mean, I guess all three kids have had their runs of kids knocking on the door. Everett definitely the most because there's just so many kids around here that are his age. But I mean, he's even funny because they'll like, they'll ring the doorbell or whatever, and I'll be like, "Are you gonna go get that?" And he'll be like, "No, they'll just, they'll know that I don't want to play." But yeah, so essentially, it might as well be the UPS guy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like so kids are even trained to do that. Like answering the door now is like answering the phone used to be. You used to have to just let the phone ring, let
Yeah.
the machine pick it up. And now, you just don't answer. I mean, we never answer the door. Like FedEx came the other day and a company had required a signature and I could not get it to do it on the internet. So they just took the fucking package back and and I mean, resent it back to the person and all that shit. And because I didn't have time to fuck with it before I left town. And, it's like, I even that doesn't get me to run to the door. I'm just so surprised by it. And like anything, there's an insurance adjuster coming to look at my house from the storm. And I'm just like, do I have to be here? Like, is there any need for me really ever to see anybody? Yeah. I've been having to rent a trailer for the country band, and I do everything online, and I really don't understand why I have to go into the building every time and like go through everything again that I've already went through. Like I've already sent them my driver's license and everything. Like why can't it just be like, hey, pick up this trailer, send us a picture of it hooked up to your vehicle and get the fuck out of here, But I still have to go through and talk to a disgruntled employee each time that fucking hates their job. And they have to come out and hook it up, which is fine. I do like when they hook it up, but I don't know.
I've got two examples of the perfect marriage of like human involvement meeting technology making things better.
Okay, go.
And they both have to do pretty much with restaurants, but hey, they're serving their clients, their customers, right? The
Mhm.
first one is, it's nice to go to a restaurant, have an actual server, not order at the counter and take it for, like, have someone that brings you refills and whatever, right?
Yep.
That's great. But whenever it's time to go and you want to pay the bill, the like looking for them and waiting, and then they come and get your card and take it away and come back. Like, okay, the perfect thing about technology is now there's the two ways that they fixed it. Sometimes they'll just bring you the bill and you can scan the QR code and just pay it on your phone, or they have the little tabletop thing where whenever you're done, you just tab out and pay it. Great. You have the waiter, she's bringing, or he is bringing you food and refills, and you can make changes and whatever with the human contact. But once you're done, I'm out, right?
Yeah, there's a
Beautiful.
green light on that motherfucker.
Yeah, and then the other thing, which is also mostly restaurants, is the valet thing. You know, now instead of having to go back to the stand and hand them the ticket, or wait for them to get back and hand them the ticket, and then they go get it. Whenever you drop your car off, they're like, "What's your phone number?" And you just get the text thing. And whenever you're ready to, whenever you're paying your bill, you check, "Hey, bring the car around," and you get there and it's there.
Man, I have to agree on the restaurant thing and the valet thing. Brilliant. You're exactly right. And as most folks know, I'm snooty and I will fucking valet. But it has nothing to do with financial means. It's convenience. I fucking love convenience. I love it. And
there's certain places where it just makes freaking sense, right? I mean, busy part of town, no parking. It's like, okay, I could drive around for an extra 15, 20 minutes, find a spot where I'm going to have to still pay to park, and then walk 4 blocks back to, or just give this guy, a tip.
Yeah, most of the time it's free. You just give them $5 or whatever.
Yeah,
10, whatever, depending on how much, what you're eating. Listen, I totally agree with you on all of this. I think that, and I think you sort of hinted at this. I think there's kind of limits because there are restaurants, and I'm going to just let the audience know we had a terrible Buffalo Wild Wings experience on the road with the country band. And because they you had to order on that kiosk thing on the app. The problem was they don't have it set up correctly. Like, it didn't even have all of the beers that they have, and it was adding Pepsi to a shot of anything that you ordered and all this. So it's like, you're not ready for this. And then they seemed very irritated that it like it was us that was the problem, and we're trying to explain. And then there was a problem checking out and all of that. It's just, I feel like there's something that restaurants do, and they always seem to start trying new shit before they're ready. Like, they don't fucking like it. Even Wichita Falls was terrible about this when we were kids. Like, restaurants would open before they were ready to open, and what they don't realize is that people don't come back twice.
Right.
In a town like that, after a bad experience, you get one shot. And remember Hello Texas opened up, then it became Howdy Texas, and then it became something else, and it was just like they could not get their shit together. And it's just like, man, proper planning, right? You got to have it ready. And I feel like it's like that with all this digital shit too. It should be just like a video game or an app. Like, you should go through all the glitches and just make it fucking easy for people.
Yeah, when you implement it, there should be a test run, and you understand the glitches and work on working those glitches out.
Yeah.
That being said, I mean, in the real world, that we're going from not opening a restaurant, but going from an open restaurant to like, here, we're going to implement this new system. I understand that there's going to be some glitches there, but to me, that becomes a management / training issue at that point, because they need to go to everyone there. Hey, we've got a new system. Be patient. Explain up front when the people are sitting down, there's a new system and that there may be some glitches. And that's all about setting expectations.
Right. And if you have any problems, we'll be right over here and with a smile on our face, come over here and help you.
Yeah, not go, you did it wrong, whenever the mobile app is not mobile friendly. That's not me doing it wrong.
100%. No, I absolutely agree with you. And I think too, a lot of times we're hard on national chains, but we forget that a lot of them are franchisees and they don't all have the same systems. I'm sure that there's a cost involved to converting to this or this. And, so I'm sure that's probably what we were into, because I've never had a problem at a Buffalo Wild Wings before, I mean,
and we've been to hundreds.
Yeah, I can't think of a time. I mean, except for the time that Eric ordered nachos and they just gave him plain corn chips. But still, I'm not certain that that wasn't like an error, just or a miscommunication or something. But regardless, Gary, we got to take a break. When we come back, OJ Simpson.
Just heard about that a few minutes
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk a little bit about just what your journey with that guy was, as far as like when we'll talk about it in a minute. First, we're going to be back with more Rockstar Dad Show. Y'all listen to this. Back to the Rockstar Dad Show. It's me, Jaret. Gary's here. We're on Adobe Radio every single Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Again on Tuesday at 9, and then we go to your favorite podcast app, and we are on all the socials, and our social media stuff is killing it, thanks to producer Jack, who is What the Gleason on Instagram, and you can check out his band Roommates. He's doing a killer job, and he makes zero money, and it's just awesome to have him on board. So we appreciate Jack, and y'all should follow him and support the things that he does. I woke up today to a friend of ours who's a bit of a firecracker. Phil Polos, who is Bowling for Soup's daddy. He's our first ever big radio promoter guy for when we started with Jive, and would be there for a very good chunk of our career. Of the 9 years that we were there, and just an amazing guy, but just the best stories in the world, and a fascinating person.
And took us through the times where we had no fucking clue what we were doing, and we're just complete jackasses,
and still loved us.
Yeah, exactly.
Still like his own, right? And he just does weird shit anyway. And so I woke up to the second time today. I got up, and I got Everett to school, or out the door at school. Basically, it's super easy now. You just wake up and you make sure he gets his shoes on, brushes his teeth, fixes his hair, puts on deodorant, has his computer, puts his homework in the right folder, and out the door by a certain time. It's a 25, 30-minute shift, and it's and then sometimes he wants breakfast and sometimes he doesn't, because that's what teenagers do.
Yeah, Tyler's gotten to the point now where, like, I've as a parent, I make him something to eat, and 9 out of 10 times he doesn't even touch it. And like all those breakfast spreads on movies finally make sense, where the teenager comes in, it's like waffles and sausage and all this shit on the table, and they're just like out the door.
Yeah, or they grab a Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have those because we would destroy those during snack time. Snack time for him, drunky time for daddy.
When you said snack time, that 100% translated in my mind to 3 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Just shit-faced, like putting peanut butter on a chocolate one and being like, it's fucking Reese's, or whatever. Just anything you could do, whatever. Yeah. Like my wife thinks she thinks the shit that I come up with when I'm hammered to eat is just the funniest thing. And I don't disagree, because it could be anything. But I will say, one time she made me a ham and cheese sandwich on a blueberry muffin, and it was about the fucking best thing I've ever had in my life. And that was all due to alcohol.
That's a little confusing to me, but I'm sure it's especially in different states of mind.
Give it some thought.
Yeah.
It was essentially a Monte Cristo. And boy, was it was the sweet and the salty and the cheesy, and fuck, it was good. Well, so OJ Simpson passed away after a battle with cancer, and I'm sure everybody in the world has their own feelings about him. I mean, he, of course, went through a large part of the 90s being a pretty hated guy, and as with a lot of things in life, time doesn't heal all wounds, but it manages to turn.
Well, before he was a hated person, he was adored.
Well, right. So I'm going to get to that. But I just wanted to say that, that, like, I feel like it's something that can be talked about, because by the time he was, the last few years, he's just kind of a cartoon character. Like, it's more like just like a dipshit guy, right? Like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Most of the time. But this is a guy from my days who, I remember people talking about him as one of the best college running backs ever. And then I remember my buddy Mark Rosentreader, his favorite football player was OJ Simpson, and I just thought that name was so cool. My first real memory of him was he was the Hertz rent-a-car guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran through airports, and that was his whole thing, was like, and I still think there's a large percentage of the people from my generation and above, and maybe one below, maybe you, like when you see people run through airports, you just think of OJ Simpson. Like, I mean, that's maybe Seinfeld for me now, because I've seen the airport pickup episode like 4 times in the last 2 months.
Yeah, I remember the OJ thing. For me, if you see someone running through the airport, it's Home Alone.
Okay. All right. Well, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So that's definitely a generational thing, because the deal was he ran through the airport like a running back. He wasn't knocking people over, but he's like jumping over suitcases, and he's carrying.
Yeah, I remember all that.
Yeah.
I was too young to have watched him play football, but I remember those commercials. But I didn't know who he was. It was just a funny commercial.
Yeah. I definitely, you didn't really understand why he was running through the airport. You know what? I think I was kind of that young too. I mean, I'm not, as we get older, you're not that much younger than me.
Right.
And so, what are you, 8 years younger than me? No, 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I knew he was a football player, but at that time in my life, when I was a kid, I didn't watch football. I watched whatever my parents were watching football-wise, if I was watching football. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't even really, we would go over to watch football games, and then you'd find out the kid had a pinball machine that he never wanted to play, and you'd try to talk him into playing the pinball machine, and of course he never wanted to, because if the kid has pinball machine, he doesn't want any fucking thing to do with it. It's like this foosball table that sits upstairs in my house. I fucking never play it, but if I go over to somebody else's house, I want to fucking play the foosball machine.
Yeah, Kyle Sargent had the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, and I never saw it come out of his closet once. But
Yeah,
every time I went over there, I was like, maybe we should get that fucking
let's
thing out.
get this thing out of there. It's like, this is not unlike how if you're flipping channels and 16 Candles is on TBS, you'll stop and watch it, but you've had the DVD. Or actually, now you can just stream that anytime you want.
Yeah.
Like, it's God, I'm still holding on to these DVDs. I don't know why. I think it's like getting my ass kicked on the CDs thing. Like, I just fucking finally threw them all away before I realized that I could have sold them.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I would get for these DVDs. But I think you can donate them. I think that's the last thing that I saw. You can donate them to a library, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hard on the DVDs and the CD thing. I have a very few select ones that I still have, but it's because they're so obscure and hard to find. Even whenever they were of the moment, they were hard to find. So now, if I ever wanted to replace it, it'd be next to impossible. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep some of these.
Yeah, so CDs, that's where I'm at too. It's 2 big boxes of local bands and shit stuff that I ordered from SST or shit like Cruise Records or whatever. And
yeah, you weren't getting it at the mall. You were having to order it off some paper catalog.
And there's no way it's still in print, I'm sure, whatever. But to DVDs, I don't even have a way to play any of those things. Like, I don't have a CD player anywhere, nor do I have a Blu-ray or DVD player. I don't even have a computer that accepts a disc anymore.
I think the car that I got rid of in November was the last thing that had a DVD player.
Yeah. Oh, right.
And it's not like I was going to go sit in the backseat of my car and watch a movie.
That would be fun though. Just like, hey man, I'm just going to cruise by. Let's fucking have a couple of beers and watch a movie in my car.
Yeah.
What are you guys up to over there? Let me stop by without calling. Hey man. Just at the Ring doorbell. Hey man, what's going on? I was just in the neighborhood. You want to I got a 6-pack and a brand new DVD that I got at the truck stop. You want to sit in the back seat, fire this thing up? Oh shit, Gary. I solved Cabin in the Woods for you. I knew there was something about it that was it's
all right. I'm going to fill everyone in since you're bringing it up out of nowhere. But on the way to Canada, I watched on the airplane. I watched Cabin in the Woods, and whenever we landed, everyone's like, "Oh, I did this on the plane. That's blah blah blah, whatever." And I was like, "Well, I watched the second worst movie I've ever seen in my life," and I just it wasn't good. It was horrible.
Right. All right. So here's why. I don't think you had the context because I don't think you're supposed to like it. So what it is a it's almost a spoof where they take stuff from Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Saw, and they put it all into this movie, but then they add in like the hunky character. I think one of the fucking Hemsworth brothers is in it and all of that. And then they point out like what's wrong with all of these movies too. So like I'm wondering if you just didn't have any context to it at all, because I remember watching it and thinking I definitely didn't think it was the worst movie I ever saw.
Okay, maybe I didn't have the context. From my point of view, I'm like, okay, I scrolled through every freaking possible way to find a movie, and the selection on this flight was horrible. I looked at new releases. I looked at the action, drama, comedy. Then I went to see all and scroll, and I'm just like, either I've seen it 100 times or it doesn't. Okay, I selected this thing. I'm like, okay, I've never seen it. I'll try it. Cabin in the Woods, supposed to be spooky. I'm guessing they're going to go to this cabin in the woods, and it's going to be a thriller movie.
Right.
Somehow it turns into some crazy science fiction thing with the elevator into like a government run world organization with all of the monsters from it. It just was, no, come on.
Yeah. So apparently, and one of the reviews, or one of the things that I read about it is it's supposed to be pointing out everything that's wrong with scary movies these days. And apparently they fucking did it.
I guess.
Because it's been bugging me. Not that, because again, I didn't hear you say that and think, well, wait a minute, I thought that was good. I just heard you say that. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, there's something about that movie. Like I remembered there being like, because we did it on Jaret Goes to the Movies back when that was a podcast. And I can vaguely remember the conversation. I don't remember the movie at all, which that's not rare. That's, I mean, these days, I still remember shows, but I don't remember things like that quite the way I used to. And I think it's really attention span during it. I was probably doing 15 other things while I was watching that just so that I could get through the podcast.
Yeah.
But the thing that was bothering me about it, but I was just like, okay, I remember it being bad, but not like, because your example of the worst movie ever is I Spit on Your Grave.
And it's the worst movie ever.
And that movie is terrible. Yeah, it's a terrible, terrible movie. But that is more like it's like a cult classic, scary, movie from. It's more like not Swamp Thing, but what's the one where the guy goes into the fucking Toxic Avenger? Like it's not silly like that. But like Toxic Avenger, probably like I Spit on Your Grave. Like Bobby Donovan. Little Bobby, who used to work for us, probably loves both those movies.
Maybe I could see him liking to Spit on Your Grave more than Cabin in the Woods, but who knows?
But he probably does.
Yeah,
and that's just it. Like I think this thing. But anyway, it was driving me crazy because like there's something about that movie that I think you're supposed to know going in, or whatever. But anyway, OJ Simpson.
So that's what I was going to bring us back by saying. Okay, so neither one of us. We probably both got to OJ Simpson kind of in the same way. I mean, we didn't watch him play football and then he had a commercial, but then, and we'll tie it into the movies that we were just talking about.
That's right. Naked Gun. Yeah, I mean, he had done a few things. Like by then I knew who he was because he had done like a few things on TV, and you saw him on interviews and things like that. You knew who he, and then and he did a lot of stuff with Bob Costas, because I remember Bob Costas never actually called him OJ. He only called him Juice, and that was his nickname, and so like I don't know if I don't remember specifically if they did like called games together or if they were on like a Monday Night Football thing together or what. I don't quite remember, and I could Google it, but I'd rather the listener have to figure it out because I don't care, Gary.
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
understand.
And so anyway, but yeah, the Naked Gun movies, which are about to come out again with Liam Neeson playing the Liam Neeson playing the Liam. Is it
Niece.
Neeson? They're not.
Leslie Nielsen.
Okay.
Liam Neeson is playing Leslie Nielsen. Man, that's a tongue twister.
That is tough, right? Yeah. And none of them named Nelson. Yeah, and so and there's people who are like, "Man, what do you think about this?" I'm like, "That's exactly what you need. You need the serious guy to come in."
Yeah.
And it's like why Hot Shots worked so well with Charlie Sheen at the time that it came in, because you only knew that guy really from Platoon,
Right.
and a few other things here and there, but never anything like that. And
Yeah, I mean, you got to think back to like the originals. And now I'm fucked up on the names, but Leslie Nielsen was so dry that it made it amazing, right? Like it just wouldn't have been the same if it was Steve Martin,
Yep.
Which I love Steve Martin, but like it just wouldn't have landed the same.
Sure, that's the thing is like they so when they remake those movies, a lot of times sometimes they go the silly route, right? Like cuz I remember my dad really liked Pink Panther when he was I don't know about, I guess not a kid, but I mean he used to watch the Peter Sellers Pink Panther. And then I think when they got Steve Martin to remake it, which I never saw either, but I do remember trailers and stuff, I think he was more of like a silly, almost like comic version of that. And they do that a lot with remakes and stuff. I think getting someone that plays it like way more serious is going to be even more funny.
Yeah.
And especially because I hope they keep the narration, because that's such a big part of the show, is that Police Squad and Naked Gun is the narration that happens, because he's always talking about, it's like just passing the two hills, and he's like, and everything I would see reminds me of her.
When did they announce that they're doing another Naked Gun?
That's all been in the works. Just the last couple of months is when it came to a head. But they've got, and that's the thing, is people are like, Liam Neeson he's too straight. I'm like, that's exactly why this is going to be funny, because it's going to be the opposite of what, I mean, he's got he's the man with the certain set of skills that nothing silly could ever happen to the guy. And it's just, it's perfect casting.
Yeah. And playing that man that can't do anything silly while all this craziness is happening behind him
exactly
is what makes it amazing. So I was thinking about this whenever I heard that OJ had passed away, was that I loved the Naked Gun movies, and he was probably like the first canceled person before canceling was canceled, right? And it was such a cancel, such a cancel that like we couldn't watch those movies anymore because he was in it, and they didn't make anymore. They didn't replace him. Like it was just gone, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's why I was asking, when did they announce that? Because that's kind of interesting timing.
Oh, I got you. No, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, you definitely had guys that had done bad shit, I mean, yeah, you didn't Roman Polanski, I guess, and because I guess we just let Woody Allen get away with everything. But this was kind of the ultimate cancelization, because we watched it all air out on TV. I mean, right. I had the toy store at the time, and so most days, if I didn't have a customer, the TV was on and up, and I just had it on that, and it was just sort of like, it's kind of weird when I think back to that time, because it was sort of this, like a longer Olympics. You know how, like, when you were a kid, it seemed like the Olympics lasted like 6 months, because just like anytime you turned on the TV, it was just on. you know? And there becomes this sort of weird familiarity with it. Like almost like well, if I don't have anything else to do, I can watch skiing, you know. Well, at that time in my life, I was in college and yeah, I guess I could just watch the trial, I mean, and just nothing like that had ever happened, in our lifetime anyway.
I mean, I have a little bit different mindset slash experience just because we never had cable. So, like, I was always used to being like, well, I guess we'll just watch this,
Yeah.
because we didn't have the 36 channels. We had 3 channels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even still then, okay, well then that makes my Olympics OJ Simpson scenario even more because
No, it makes perfect sense that in the fact, like, when the Olympic is on, that's what's on.
that's it,
Yeah,
I mean,
when the trial was on, that's
that's
it.
that's what's on, and like I remember they would take a break during the trial for like Days of Our Lives or something. And it would just go right back to it, it was wild. And but yeah, man, I just remember like how beloved that man was for sports and movies and philanthropy and whatever, to just being brought down to just being remembered laying in the backseat of that Bronco while his buddy drives him around being followed, and that's sort of his legacy, um and I guess he worsened that, but a lot of people is what's funny about people is people will miss shit. But I was just telling, I think it was Rob, but I'm not positive. I maybe it wasn't, but didn't actually. There's a lot of people who don't know why he actually ended up going to prison.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the murder case.
Nothing to do with it. It's all this stolen memorabilia and like this whole sting operation that got set up, and he was stealing at gunpoint in a casino things that he felt were being stolen from him. But it all was just this intricate thing just to fucking bust the guy. And, and he went to jail for that. And then lived out his days on the golf course. And, I don't know. I think it's a sad, sad thing, and I think at the end of the day, I think it's, I don't know that there's anybody left that thinks that he's innocent. Like, I feel like if anybody else is left that thinks that, because seriously, I'm not just saying this. Like, it's not a conspiracy thing. I mean, he fucking did it. He, right? I mean, he just goddamn did it. We just understand that. Like, I feel like there's probably people that will just go, I don't know, man, whatever. Those are the people that are just like, yeah, there's no aliens. It's just like, no, I mean, the government fucking told us there's aliens. Like, there just are, like.
Yeah, I didn't read it, but didn't even in like his own book, I didn't do it, but if I did, like spells out exactly how things went down, and there's stuff that like you wouldn't know if you weren't there type stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sad middle finger to so much, and that those poor families, and that's, at the end of the day, when you go back, that's where I was heading. The sad thing is that, Nicole Brown's family and Ron Goldman's family, they're,
and
they
even OJ's family, right? I mean,
yeah, and you just see this fucking dipshit in the news all the time, and you're just constantly reminded. It's just such a big middle finger, It's just overall just such a terribly sad situation, about how we can build somebody up, and just you just never fucking know, man, because apparently their life wasn't all that amazing. Inside there was a lot of shit going on in there, and that's sad. Beautiful home, beautiful kids, and Kato Kalin out living out back, damn, but I wanted to bring that up because I sort of wondered what your OJ journey was like when, and Naked Gun makes a lot of sense. And, and that's what I was going to say earlier. I remember too, I do remember like him running through airports. And I even at my age, I was like, I do not understand why you would run through an airport. Like,
Yeah.
what's the point? You just that's a lot to put together.
Yeah.
It's like they just people just expect us to know everything as kids.
I think you're right. Going back to like, there's no winner in this scenario.
Yeah,
It ruined his life, but we're saying he's guilty, so kind of fuck him. Who cares?
exactly.
He deserves that. But there's the victims' horrific death, and then their families, and you got to think OJ's family too. I mean, he had parents who have this son going through that, and then you have his kids who
Mm.
they're sitting there going, did my dad just fucking kill my mom and have to live with that? And there's just no
No,
winners in the whole situation.
yeah,
And also, to your point of like, you just don't know what's going on in people's lives, and sometimes you may see someone and think that they have it all and not understand why they're in a bad mood or why they're depressed or why whatever, and you just have no idea what's going on.
man, that thing is so far reaching too, because he had kids with his previous wife before that. That family is vast, but God, I mean, think about like I feel like the judge and the prosecuting attorneys and uh some of the police officers. I mean, just how much all of their lives were just affected and by all this, because everybody thought the judge was a dipshit and
Yeah.
the prosecuting attorneys were dipshits, and then the one attorney or the one cop ends up being a racist, and he's called out for that, and then I definitely guilty of some shit, but some also Johnny Cochran shit poured on top of that people probably just believe to be true, and it's
Yeah.
just again no, I guess the Kardashians won, and who else was on that fucking thing? It was the guy that invented, so it's Johnny Cochran, then
Shapiro, right?
Shapiro, who invented what is that? What's the thing where you can do your own stuff?
Legal ease or
Legal Zoom.
legal Zoom. Yeah.
Legal Zoom, like that dude. Fuck. I mean, how much money has that guy made? And then, of course, Cochran, who became a character in and of himself, with the Seinfeld character based on him and stuff, and
South Park.
South Park, and mentioned in a fucking Good Charlotte song, for Christ's sake, like it's like that's pretty far reaching.
Yeah.
And then there's the old guy that Lee, I can't think of it, but that guy was already like super, super famous and shit. But I don't know. I think all of us probably have our OJ journey. At the end of the day, he's gone. Fuck him. And hopefully, somebody said in one of the threads, my text messages, nobody should ever see, but we still have a trivia thread, even though we don't play trivia, where we make up a trivia name based upon anybody who dies. And so, first of all, Derek Pitzinger won because he literally sent a thing of orange juice that expired yesterday. and God, that's fucking funny indeed. Because some people probably didn't even look at the thing, but somebody goes, it'd be great if the Hearst was a white Bronco, and I'm like, they should let Ron Goldman's dad drive it.
Oh, geez, yeah.
So
to your point earlier, after that event, everyone knew him for football, and then TV and commercials and movies and all that. And then after that, he kind of just went off into either oblivion or being the brunt of a joke. And in death, he's also going to be the brunt of a joke. That like
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's certainly what it's going to be. Well, you know what? I have no I have no sympathy for him, and but I do for his family, and I hope
sure.
that that at least that they've got a little mojo and a little something to help them through. Listen, we got to take a break. When we come back, there's more Rockstar Dad Show. Y'all listen to this. Welcome back to the Rockstar Dad Show. And man, my son has had quite a week, Gary. He made percussion.
All right.
As
from the whittled down thing?
From the whittled down thing. So
nice.
He where he goes to school, they had whittled it down to 50 entrants, and only 13 made it into percussion. And it's such a difference between, when I was a kid and now, but he's very happy, and he also got his 2 stripes that he needed to finally test for that black belt, and so he will be a legitimate first-degree black belt in the coming weeks, and he made percussion, and so just some proud dad moments going on over here.
The kid's got a pretty badass resume going.
He does, man. He's doing pretty damn good. And then now, and it got me to thinking. Your child broke like 3 bones while we were gone.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about the shit hitting the fan whenever we leave, and I guess it was right as we landed in Toronto. I had a phone call, and Anik's getting ready to take him to a baseball game. And she's like, or maybe they're in the car. I think they're in the car on the way to the baseball game. And she's like, well, Tyler broke a toe. And I'm like, what? He's always breaking pinkies and toes and all this shit. And I go, what happened? He goes, well, right before the game, he and Mia were running around chasing each other, and he ran into a doorway and broke his toe. I'm like, well, shit. Which one? And I think is a pinky again. She sent me a photo, and the thing's jacked up. But he was good enough, and he played through the pain and had a great game. But then I think it was 2 days later, they had a practice, and I get a call like right at the time practices just started, and they're in the car, and I'm like, oh, I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, uh-oh, y'all are late to practice. And she's like, well, on the very first pitch of practice, Tyler got hit with a baseball bat. We're on the way to the emergency room. It's like, what
my God?
How the hell? So he was playing catcher, and he was too close to the batter, and in the batter's swing, the bat hit his arm and messed it up. Luckily, after they went to the emergency room, it wasn't broken, severely bruised.
Mm-hmm.
He was in a ton of pain, had to wear a sling for a few days, had to keep it iced down. But now here we are, what's that? Probably 5 or 6 days later.
Yeah.
He's almost to 100% now. Like, he feels a lot better and is participating in practices and stuff now.
It's so funny how, like, if we were in a softball league and that happened to one of us, like, that'd be a 3-4 week thing. It might be an ongoing thing forever. Like, that literally might be the thing that is wrong with your shoulder when you're 75 years old, and you're just like, yeah. And people's like, oh, what happened to that again, Granddad? Oh, I got hit with a bat in softball.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kids are so resilient and tough and good for him. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's come a long way, man. When he broke that first pinky on his hand last year when we were out of town, he was, he's still a kid. He was 12 and hadn't ever really broken anything. He was supposed to play a game, and I'm not in town to kind of nudge him a little bit into like, it's just a pinky. You can still play through this. And,
right.
It was kind of shocking to him. And he had mama at home going, oh my gosh, he's hurt. And luckily he ended up playing and understood after the game. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you play through some pain, and you gain a lot of respect through that. And also you feel good, anyways, it wasn't even a thought this time. When he got hit with the bat, he knew he needed to go to the hospital. But he broke his toe, and he goes, I didn't even tell my coach about it. Like, I just went and we played the game.
Yeah, man, what a good point. Good parenting. I mean, but you are right. There is a respect for, we hear about it all the time. You hear about it even in the pros, where those guys are getting paid millions and millions of dollars. You think it'd just be a given, but you're like, yeah, this guy's playing through with a sprained wrist, and this guy's playing with this and this and this. And of course, I guess they don't have to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes back to, I guess they don't have to, but it's not just that you gain the respect, but you also have a bit of an obligation to your team, right? You don't have the obligation to like play if it's going to make you more injured, but if it's just a little bitty thing and it kind of hurts if I do this, maybe you get out there and you play the freaking game.
Well, and especially this day and age where it's not like they have a lot of subs, like I don't know how Select is, but for Everett's team, there's 2 guys on the bench, like if a couple of dudes aren't playing, you don't have a full team. And so I'm sure it's pretty close to that, and also, but man, good for him. I'm glad he's okay. We just kind of kept getting the Gary update was always like, oh, they're on their way to the hospital again, and
Yeah.
here we go.
I'm kind of tired of saying that.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
My goodness, man. I'll tell you, there's a helplessness when something happens like that, when we're on the road and one of our kids gets hurt, or there's a health concern, or that, any of this, because there's literally nothing we can do. I mean, we can make phone calls if we need to, or, those things, but that is, when we do, again, another time when we realize what that the moms are also, and maybe bigger rock stars, for being able to handle and maneuver all of that. But man, it sucks when you're gone and there's just nothing you can do, and
100%. Yeah. Whenever I got the phone call that he got hit by a bat, I mean, that's pretty terrifying. And, the worst thing in your mind flashes through your mind instantaneously. And then, obviously she kept on explaining it's his arm. Okay. And then I heard him in the car and he's talking. I'm like, okay, it's not the worst case scenario, but it's still that helpless feeling. You want to be there for your kid.
yeah,
And, I get off the phone and you can feel that helplessness feeling kind of extended because everyone else in the room overheard my conversation and you guys are all just like,
yeah,
what's going on?
yeah, totally,
And y'all feel that, not to the extent that I do, but I mean, I feel it whenever it's your kid and
of
you feel it
course.
when it's mine.
Yeah, it's funny how Rob is newlier wed and more newly a dad.
Yeah.
And he still does the thing where he, like, if something like that happens, he gets up and, like, leaves the bus.
Yeah.
And we've been doing this so fucking long that, like, we just sit there, and, like, you're just gonna have the conversation with everybody in there. You're gonna have to tell everybody in it anyway. And I think we've talked about this on the show before, but we had a rule when cell phones first became a big thing. It's like, hey, if you're gonna talk on the cell phone in front of everybody, we're all gonna eavesdrop, and we're allowed to ask questions.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
a big rule in the Bowling for Soup van. It was like, and so it's like when you're on those calls, it's I do not hesitate to just go, oh shit, what happened now, man? Like it's pretty funny
Yeah.
to watch the new generation, so to speak.
Well, it's kind of also circumstantially, or maybe I should say more locationally, uh, how you react getting that phone call, right? If
Yeah,
we're on the bus in the middle of a parking lot, it's easy to just step off the bus and have a private conversation.
yeah,
If you're on the bus driving down the road, I mean, I guess I could go to the bunk area, but there's probably someone asleep back there, right? If we're in the venue like we were in this instance, what am I going to do? Step out into the hallway where there's a band playing in the next room? Like, I'm going to stay in our room. You guys are all going to be polite and kind of keep down a little bit, right? I'm not going to demand that y'all stop having conversations, but like y'all aren't going to be screaming and hooting and hollering. Like the best thing is just sit there and have the conversation.
yeah.
And like you said, I'm going to have to tell everyone about it anyway, so y'all just be a part of it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing, right? And then sometimes like I'll find myself just going and Rob's, getting his chair ready, whatever. And you just sort of like include the room sometimes, but well, what a great tour. And it's great to be back. We got some great guests coming up, guys. And don't forget Bowling for Soup, new single out. Don't You Want Me, featuring the two bands that we had in Canada with us. And it came out really good. Super happy with
Honestly, I kind of hate that song,
yeah.
and I think our version turned out really good. I don't hate it.
That's good to know. That's
Yeah.
so funny. It's funny how we don't talk about that, like we just sent it to you and we're like, okay, we decided to do this, play drums, because it was such a Hail Mary to try to get that song done and out before we left.
Yeah.
And so
Because
I'm glad.
on my end, though, I went to go record with Christian, who's been doing our past few drum recordings.
Yep.
And you guys weren't there. It's just me and him go record drums. And whenever I got there, he's like, so what are we doing today? And he pulled it up and I was like, man, I've just always hated this song. And he goes, yeah, it's kind of weird. It's not my favorite either. But it turned out good. I'm actually happy with it. So I'm not trying to talk shit on our new song.
Yeah.
Like, Okay, I liked the way we did it.
No worries, man. I think it came out great too, and it was cool just to finally tour with those guys.
Alexa, stop. Did I give her any kind of command to start doing anything?
They just get mouthy sometimes.
Oh.
I would help you yell at her, but then mine would get mouthy and take up for it. Can't have that. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for tuning in to this episode. Don't forget, new episode next week, and we're on social media. Go follow us everywhere. And until then, y'all be good.
This is a song for my friends Jaret and Gary. They started a podcast and said a theme was necessary. They're just a couple of guys in a band that you know, some rockstar dads who started a show. Until the next episode.